Hi 56, welcome back to another week of writing. For this week, we're doing another persuasive piece and it's titled, It's Time to Detox from Technology. So as you can see there, you need to write a persuasive text convincing everyone to not spend so much time on technology. So I'm hoping that you're almost experts at persuasive writing now and you should be very aware of how to structure each one of your paragraphs. You'll all be receiving a copy of this plan this week. We'll upload that to the class story. You can see on the left hand side, I've given you some information on everything that you need to include within that paragraph. And then on the right hand side, I'd like you to actually fill in some of your ideas over there. Remember that it's really important to plan effectively because that will ensure that all of your ideas are organized and sequenced, and it'll be a lot easier when you actually start to write each one of your paragraphs. So I'll start with the structure for our introduction. We need to start off with an anecdote that the reader can visualize. We need to focus on either a negative or positive situation that relates to the topic. And we also need to make sure that we start off with a VIP word. So what are some ideas for an anecdote? Well, you could talk about someone that is failing at school because they're playing too many video games. They could have been playing video games all night and come to school tired and grumpy. They could have been playing games instead of completing their homework or studying for a test. You could talk about someone with eye problems or someone that's even gone blind from watching too many bright screens. So there are a number of options, but remember, be creative, try to think outside of the box, and also remember to use descriptive vocab and some of those powerful strategies to give the reader the ability to really visualize the situation. You need to also start with a VIP word, which is either visualize, imagine, or picture. But again, if you've got your own interesting way of starting that's not using any of these three words, then go for it. We always encourage, as I said, people thinking outside the box a little bit. We then need to state our contention. Remember, that's our opinion, what we believe, using persuasive language. We should, again, be experts on persuasive language now. Words like wholeheartedly, passionately, firmly, undoubtedly. Those are the words that we're looking for there when we're talking about persuasive language or persuasive vocab. Then we need to briefly state what our two big ideas are. I've just got in brackets there that linking to health, family, happiness, or education will work for most arguments. You'll find when we talked about last week that particular big ideas just won't relate to certain topics, but the big ideas that I've put there in the brackets, you'll find will relate to most of the topics that we'll talk about in our persuasive writing. And then finally, just need to end with a strong statement. So I've got the space there, as I said, for you to fill in your own ideas. Make sure that you do that, please. On to our arguments. So again, not a huge difference there with the structure is there. Okay, the only thing that I've added here is that maybe you can also include a rebuttal. So for argument one, we start with sequencing vocab, which can be firstly, first and foremost, etc. Link to your big idea. And then we need to include arguments that relate to the big idea. So we need to expand on our arguments and make sure that we don't just leave it at it's bad for our health and safety, for example. Well, why is it bad for our health and safety? Include some arguments that the reader can also visualize. And then you just need to link to some statistics or some research. Example there is the Australian Health Association. If you're talking about health and safety is your big idea for that argument, really important to always link back to an expert or an expert organisation. And then we obviously end with a strong statement. You'll find that we end with a strong statement with each one of our paragraphs that we create. Argument 2, I won't go through all that. Again, I've done a mistake here though, haven't I? I'll ask you before I actually edit that. Well, what are some of the words that I can use? Hopefully you said something like secondly, or we could use furthermore. We'll then again link to our big idea, include arguments that relate to that, link to some statistics or research, or for this one you could also include a rebuttal if you're confident to do that. And as I said, we always end with a strong statement. Please make sure again that you are filling in this section here with your own ideas. And then we're down to our conclusion and our coda. For our conclusion, we start with sequencing vocab such as to reiterate, etc., etc. We restate our contention using persuasive vocab, talked about that above in the introduction. Briefly restate your two big ideas, And then we need to link back to our original anecdote. So for example, if you're starting with a really negative situation at the start, focus on a positive situation at the end. Make sure that both of those anecdotes link up. But if you're starting with a positive, end with a negative, or vice versa. That's also really, really important. And then, as always, we end with our strong statement. And for our coda, if we can, try to relate it to your title. It could be possibly a quote or even something like a rhetorical question. So good luck with your planning today. Remember, you will be receiving a copy of this. If you can't print it off for some reason, that's fine. You can just write this in your books. Just use this as a bit of a guide. But if you can print it out, it'd be fantastic if we could see all of the ideas that you've come up with and possibly give you some feedback and advice before you start your introduction tomorrow. So take care, guys. Good to see you again. And we'll actually see you at school in a couple of weeks, which we're all really excited about. Take care. Bye.